This is the podcast that we ask our guests from in front and behind the camera, how did they get their foot in the door? What was the key to unlocking their success? What's their story? Join me and the creators from behind and in front of the camera of horror thriller Dangerous Animals as we chat about real on-set shark attacks, shooting in the open Australian sea, and of course, how it all began. Every actor has their own journey into this business, and I'd love to ask both of you, like, what was the moment, the thing that kind of gave you that, oh, I want to be an actor? Was there a specific moment? If we could start with you, Hassie.
It's a great question. I think I love movies. I love storytelling. I love for me personally, like the way it gives you access to your own emotions and processing the world. And I think for me, there were a couple movies I watched and they're so different. Like Elizabeth with Cate Blanchett. I remember that movie like moved me so much when I watched it, but then also like Grumpier Old Men with like Walter Matthau and Jack Lemmon. I was like, wait, I'm such a goofball. Like I
That
love
is very
getting to
different.
laugh and like exactly. And I was just like,
Yeah.
how cool to be able to like I remember I was like, I asked my mom, I was like, is this like people are paid to do that? Like that's, and my mom started the Dallas Children's Theater. So I was very lucky to like have access, and training at a young age. But yeah, mostly because I wanted to make people laugh. But I feel like all the different kind of genres have, I've been lucky to work in Westerns and comedy and now kind of this more genre stuff too.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, this is very different. I'm a big fan of Yellowstone, and this is obviously a very different format, it being a film, but also a very different character. So it's
Yeah.
great to see, so familiar with your character in that, but then to see you in this was a lot of fun. Completely different.
Right?
Yeah, yeah, completely different. And Josh, how did you have a moment where you were like, "This is what I want to do"?
Yeah, I kind of my first taste of acting, I got booked on this on a music video. Like out of the blue. And essentially it was like the first little baby taste of acting I ever got by the director on there was he's like, hold the camera and then you're gonna follow this girl through the field and then you're gonna do this and that. And then I was on set and I was like, oh, this is sick. What's this called? And he's like, it's acting. And I was like, oh yeah, sweet. So then pretty much from that moment, I went back to Sydney and did every single night class I could find and more or less devoted my life to it from that moment. And yeah, it's just like the thing I love to do most. It's like my passion, my job, and my hobby all in one. And yeah, I just can't imagine doing anything else now at this point.
Amazing. Hanging over sharks, swimming below you that's a hobby for sure.
Yeah, it's just it's like pretty cathartic after a while. You start screaming and you're like, oh, it's nice.
Yeah. And I mean, there's our audience, we have so many actors, aspiring actors, listening to our podcast. Do you have advice for anyone trying to get their foot in the door, trying to get those first few credits?
A coach told me once, you only need two things at once. You need luck, persistence, and talent, and you only need two. And if you just keep going, eventually they align, and then you get your first gig, and then it's kind of keeps going from there.
Love that. Love that, Hassie. Do you have wide words of wisdom like that?
I mean, that's pretty good.
That's that's pretty good.
I mean,
it's not mine. I've stolen that from a coach.
No, I love that. I mean, I think
Steal from the best.
Yeah. For me, I've been doing this long enough. I think the greatest gift is just to like keep showing up. That's half the battle. And a lot of people pack up, and rejection's hard. And you have to learn to like, let it be water off a duck's back because it doesn't matter, it's not personal. And I think I was lucky. I kind of worked in casting for a couple years and I ran tapes and stuff. And I learned so much about, people's essence and archetypes and like, you know what I mean? I've seen time and time again, I hate to say it, not always the best actor wins. Sometimes it's because like, oh, well, we just needed a girl or someone who had this color hair or was 2 inches shorter or whatever it might be. And, as long as you show up and like, take care of your art and your art will take care of you. And that's what a wise man once told me.
That was good.
That's good wise words too. They're both great.
Just be nice to yourself. That goes for everyone, artists or just anyone, I think that's the trick in this day and age, especially.
Yeah, you and me, we fend for ourselves. We're sharks.
I'm nothing like you.
This film is mental. I went to see it in a really small screening with like there was probably a handful of people, but people were screaming, they were laughing, and the press aren't like that. So you're obviously doing something right. Really enjoyed it. It was really I did not know where it was gonna go. It's that kind of film where you think, who's gonna die next? But yeah, it was fantastic, guys. Well done and congratulations.
Thank you, man.
So first of all, I mean, I've just been chatting to your director Sean, and he was saying that you shot all of this actually on the water, out at sea. So when you guys, without giving anything away too much, when you guys are hanging from cranes, when you're swimming in the water, that was all real.
Oh
Yeah,
yeah.
as real as it could be.
Oh my God.
Yeah,
Does
we didn't
that
even
add
have to
like
act.
stress to, I mean, you're in character anyway, but does that really help immerse you in, what you're doing?
100%. I think Sean was quite clever in that way too. I think he immediately scoffed at like shooting this in a tank because he wanted that like grittiness and you know what I mean, the siltiness in the water. You can feel the rawness, and I feel like that's partly what makes it feel so electric. Um, is that we're like in the water in Australia, and a lot of that takes place at night, and I'm really proud of my bravery.
Yeah, was there any concern? I mean, obviously, it's set in a place where there are those big sharks. Was there any sort of concern that there might be actual sharks swimming around while you were doing this?
There was never not that concern for me.
Yeah, I feel like the whole time it's just in the back of your head. You just because they're there, and then you have some marine life barriers and stuff, but like it only takes you so far. When you're dangling by a harness as well above it, you feel like an actual piece of bait. So it just
Yeah.
adds to the vibe.
Josh, I think you should tell him.
There was
Oh
an
no, what happened?
shark incident. There was a shark incident. There was a day. So on the harness stuff, I was up there for like 2 or 3 days, and I guess I went first as the guinea pig. And while I was in the water doing that scene, there was one of our safety divers got bit by his fin and dragged underwater by a bull shark.
Oh
Um,
wow.
so that
Yep.
was made it feel real. That's for sure.
And Josh was in the water when this happened, and he got pulled underwater and like death rattled. He was okay. He came up and was like, you know what I mean? But that was
Yeah.
like our first day of like waterworks.
Mm,
Wow.
So it was
yeah.
kind of a wild start. I definitely think it like turned the volume up and
Yeah, yeah.
and
No
made it all
acting required. You're
Uh,
just like,
yeah.
like, am I gonna actually be eaten this time, or is it a joke? So
Yeah.
yeah.
I mean, yeah, without giving anything away, there's like a moment where I'll just say one of you is in a harness and you're kind of flailing around in the water, and one of the characters is like, "Don't move, stop moving." You must have genuine terror because you're genuinely doing the things that your character is doing in the situation with what could possibly be sharks. I mean, that's pretty intense.
Yeah.
Yeah, it definitely, it adds to it, just makes it feel so real. And I think Sean was a genius with that. He wanted us all to be in the water and actually be in the
Mm.
harnesses. And yeah, he definitely pulled those, I guess, performances out of us pretty easily.
How did you, I mean, for Hassie, first off, how did you get involved with this project? How did this script land on your desk?
It was cool. It was one of those things that happened really fast. I had like a little bit of actor fatigue. I'd been auditioned for a bunch of stuff that week. And then like Friday it came in, and I was like, they were like, "Oh, read this thing. We think you're like totally right for it." And I just devoured the script in one sitting. And I was like, I think you get that like intuitive hit sometimes as an actor when you're like, "Oh, wow, like I can feel this. I can feel these lines coming through me." And
Mm.
I was like, all right, yeah, let me put my name in the hat. I threw down an audition in like 3 hours and sent it over. And then like, that weekend I did like a work session with the director, Sean. And yeah, it just felt right. It all like, and look, I'll be honest, I'm a little bit of a scaredy cat. I can't do too, like, you know what I mean? Like, but I read it and it was just so like, the characters were really well developed. There was there's not like a slow moment, that nothing
Mm.
feels unearned, you know what I
Mm.
mean? Or grotesque in a way. Like every beat of that movie was, the script was so sharp that I was just like, this would be cool, you know? And I love Australia and Australians. And like when I saw that we were going to like actually get to shoot there, I was like, I'm in.
Amazing. And Josh, was it as quick? That sounds like it was pretty quick. Was it as quick for you?
Yeah, pretty well. I read the script in January last year, and then the audition came around in I think about March. But when I read the script, and it's one of those ones like Hassie was saying, where you're just flying through it. And I told my team as well, if this ever pops up and is greenlit, I'd like love to give it a go. And yeah, I did the audition, I think, because I was living in London at the time, and I did know an audition before like getting on the plane. And then by the time I was at the airport, the callback came through, and then landed in Sydney, and then did the callback with Hassie, and it was pretty much instantaneous as well.
Wow, wow. Well, guys, it's an incredible film, and as I said before, it's just so it's original, and you're watching it, and you're like, where is this gonna go? And it has a proper hook, like straight off the bat. I mean, one of the first scenes, you're like what is happening? Now for a quick break. We'll be back to the episode shortly. If you enjoyed this episode and want to support us, get early access and exclusive content and episodes, click to join our YouTube channel and become a member now. Please leave us a positive rating. Add us on Instagram, Twitter, TikTok at Life in Film Pod. Essentially, please like and subscribe everything. It makes a huge difference. Thank you. Life in Film has partnered with BetterHelp to provide you with access to the largest online therapy service in the world. And it can all be done from the comfort of your own home, from a phone, tablet or laptop. No commute, cutting down travel costs, and most importantly, it's affordable. With over 1,000 therapists in the UK, BetterHelp can provide access to mental health professionals with a wide variety of expertise in mental health. If you need someone to talk to and you're thinking of giving therapy a go, BetterHelp is a great option. And being a listener of the podcast, you get 10% off. That's 10% off your first month at betterhelp.com/lifeinfilm. That's betterhelp.com/lifeinfilm. We are sponsored by movieposters.com. Are you a movie fan? I presume you are. Well, at movieposters.com, you can shop for all your favourite posters in one place. The #1 source for high quality, authentic movie posters. From new releases to cult classics and 100% authentic originals. Thinking of having a browse? Well, if you see a poster that tickles your fancy, as a listener of the podcast, you get 10% off. That's 10% off with promo code LifeInFilm10. That's promo code LifeInFilm10. So why not give it a go? And back to the show.
Welcome aboard.
In terms of, the start of your career and realizing that you wanted to be a filmmaker, that you were interested in writing and you wanted to get into directing, what were the first few steps? How did you become, interested in making movies?
Well, my father was a film critic. Like he ran hotels, but he was also a film critic in Tasmania, which is where I'm from. So he had his own radio show and also wrote for the local paper and just was a massive film buff. So I just grew up without any censorship and just watching films kind of constantly and going to the theater week after week because he had a sort of a media pass. So I think I had kind of like a kind of like subconscious kind of like film school happening without realizing it. But then I went to law school and I didn't really think I was going to make films. It was only towards the end of my degree that it was like, like I'd seen a couple of bad films and thought, it's like I wonder if I could do better than that. But there was nothing really on offer in Tasmania other than there was a school, Rosny College, that offered a course in media production, which was basically, how to do a news segment. So I had to go as like a 25-year-old back to school with like 16 and 17-year-old just to use their equipment. And anyway, and it had a linear editing suite and it was super VHS cameras. But I just made a few short films with friends and family, and that got me into and relied on shock value quite a lot because I knew I wouldn't have big production values, and that got me into the Australian Film, Television and Radio School, which is like where Philip Noyce and Alex Proyas and Jane Campion and Kate Shortland sort of come from. And that got me an agent, and then I wrote some sort of bad David Lynch wannabe scripts that were the sort of films I wanted to see, but obviously they didn't conform to any market reality. Until I learned the hard way when I sort of was almost about, well, this is just not going to happen, that I just needed to make a contained horror film because that's that's, horror sells around the world, and that's the simplest way in. It was going to be The Loved Ones was going to be a credit card film, made for a couple of $100,000. I was basically going, what if I bought, bought De Palma's Carrie to Raimi's kind of like, Evil Dead, Cabin in the Woods, and fuse those two things. And then, Wolf Creek took off, and an Australian producer read my script and was like, I love it, but to get the money, it actually needs to be bigger. So I had to kind of reverse engineer it from like a $200,000 sort of script into something that was, more like, 3 million, and could actually, we could submit and get some traction with the funding bodies in Australia. So I kind of learned the hard way. I think you just got to have your antenna up and go, well, what's the way in? But one thing you can't do if you're trying to start off is you just can't set out to make something with too many locations if you don't have money.
Yeah, well, yeah, I guess keep it contained, keep the budget low. It is difficult that when you write something, you wanna kind of just do what you want to do, but like you've to be able to put those restrictions on yourself, that is gonna actually get the film made. So it's a catch 22 that. In terms of advice to, fellow writers, fellow directors, people trying to get their foot in the door, not only keep their script contained, but what would your advice be to, aspiring filmmakers?
Yeah, I mean, I think, well, you got to be aware. If I guess it's, I mean, I guess there's a couple of ways in. I mean, it's like the do it yourself way, where if you're gonna fund it yourself, then you obviously can't have too many locations, but you want to also do whatever genre it is. The great thing about having no money is there can be kind of force of personality. You don't have to. It's not 100 million plus where you can't take any risks. In fact, kind of taking risks can actually help things stand out as long as you're kind of within a kind of defined genre. I think the less money you have, then you've got to start to think, well, how can I cut through the clutter? And and I think a part of that is kind of force of personality. The other way of doing it, if you're coming in as a writer, Nick Leppard, he's reasonably new on the scene, and I think I think there's always excitement about new writers in the industry because the industry doesn't discriminate. They just want what's good. They want that fresh voice. It was like that when Juno came out and Diablo Cody. It was like, wow, this is like the coming of age film with like this is with teen speak that we haven't kind of heard before. So I think you almost don't need to worry about the realities of it too much if you're writing, because if you can come up with something that ticks, marketing wise, it absolutely ticks the box, but it still feels fresh. The script will do the work for you. The script will, you know what I mean? Like there's film writing competitions, or if you know someone, you get it to an agent or whatever. That's your calling card. So, like don't hold back. Don't hold back with writing to think there's certain conditions I have to satisfy because the script itself is your calling card.
What is this? Where are we?
We're on his boat.
Whose boat?
I don't think you want to know.
You started your career doing short films. You did a couple of features, which you wrote. This, I believe, is the first feature that you've done that you haven't written. What is that like? Obviously, when you write something and you're putting it together and you get to direct it, it must be a very different process to, having someone else's script and then directing it.
I didn't feel that unusual because I went to film school, but I've also, I've come from advertising as well. So I'm used to just kind of, they're still scripts, even if they're only for 30 seconds. So it's like, I'm used to kind of, executing a vision based on someone else's idea. But I couldn't direct it unless I knew it as intimately as one of my own scripts. And so, Nick was so great to work with, and there had been other projects that I developed that I hadn't, written, that, one of them, fell over 8 weeks from shooting. And so I definitely have that flexibility, but, I have to know the characters, backwards. And I always do like a Bible to begin with, where I break down the characters and all the different heads of department and storyboard. But Nick and I, we just sort of worked back and forth, from the moment that I got the script and signed on, because then, once it becomes a reality, then it's like there's market considerations, there's budgetary considerations, there's tonal considerations. It was originally set in California, and then we were moving it to Australia,
Okay.
and then the character of Tucker has to become kind of uniquely Australian, and so by the end of like this, this goes over 2 years where you have something. Then you strip it back and you build it back up. And because I'm in such regular contact with Nick and we're just going back and forth, by the end of it, it just feels like we're thinking with the one brain.
Yeah, no, of course. How did it come about originally? Like, how did you meet Nick, and how did this land on your desk essentially?
Brian Kavanagh Jones, who I've been looking to do something together with for many, many years, he sent it to my agent, and then my agent thought it would appeal to me because I do have a bit of an interest in serial killers, and then representing them in quite a kind of fun theatrical way on the screen, and then obviously the combination of serial killer and shark film. It was just so sort of like wonderfully insane and high concept, and I just couldn't believe no one had done that before. So as soon as I read the script, I was like, this is such a brilliant concept. Like, I like shark films. I like serial killer films. They're two very kind of loyal horror, sort of, they've got a very loyal kind of horror following, both of these kind of subgenres. So that instantly that was like, this is just brilliant conceptually. But then also the fact that Nick, we had a shark conservation angle in there right from the beginning, where man isn't the monster. I mean, sorry, the shark isn't the monster, man is the monster. And I'd never seen that before, and I just thought, as brilliant as Jaws is, it did a bit of a disservice to the shark, where every subsequent film, the shark kind of indiscriminately hunts humans. And I thought, what an incredible opportunity to actually right that wrong and say, no, that's not true. Sharks don't actually kind of hunt us. We're more of a danger to ourselves than sharks are. And so it was, it just felt like this is the first original shark film, since Jaws. That's what it felt like when I first read it, and that's never changed. And so conceptually, it hasn't changed. The characters, it was always kind of fun, and then it's about finding the kind of just putting it in the kind of right vessel so it ticks all the boxes and it works in a character sense.
Yeah, I mean, it's funny. There is that misconception, isn't there, that I guess it is things like Jaws and various films that Deep Blue Sea that have, you put human blood in the sea and the sharks swarm, and it's just not necessarily true. And this felt, yeah, it felt very, because I don't want to give anything away, but there's parts, someone gets nibbled at one point, and the shark isn't necessarily interested in eating that person, and that just feels a little bit more true to life, I guess.
Yeah, well, I mean, yeah, it's absolutely true that with the sort of the shark cage diving industry where people pay to swim with sharks, it's now it's illegal, but
Oh,
like
is
boat,
it?
yeah, it's illegal to chum the waters, but boat operators will actually do that now to try and guarantee that sharks will turn up. So now sharks start to associate boats with food, which, as Tucker talks about, can lead to more accidents. So when you actually have like, fish heads and there's chum there, and if you're putting a human in the middle of that, then there's obviously much greater chance of an accident happening. But there's nothing. There's the film doesn't the film doesn't shirk on the shark carnage, but it's always at the manipulation of man. Like most
Yeah.
shark films you see, they're actually just moving through the water, hunting humans. Even when there's no blood, they're just like, they're almost treated as like a creature feature where it's just some demonic presence underwater that's just going to come and get you. And that's so not true. There are less than 10 shark-related deaths per year, and they're pretty much always a case of mistaken identity. Because from underneath, humans kind of look like seals, and they breach and they rise from
Yeah.
directly underneath. And that's why on a board, with arms and legs, you kind of look like but they're just not interested in humans. So yeah, so that was I thought that was such an incredibly refreshing take, that it's like we're actually depicting sharks kind of as they are, and the serial killer is really the monster, not the shark.
Yeah. Well, in terms of, I mean, we've all heard the stories about how Jaws was a train wreck when they were filming it, and they shot a lot of it out in the actual open sea. Did you take any lessons from that? Did you shoot some of this in a tank, or was it shot at sea? What was the process?
No, none of it was shot in a tank. I mean, we looked at that early on, but it's so kind of cost prohibitive for. I mean, it's a really big tugboat, and there's only one tank. There's only one tank in Australia that could fit it, and I think that was $80,000 a day. So it was never really a possibility. Plus, tanks feel quite sort of sterile, I think, and it's very, very hard to manipulate Mother Nature, and you have to add wind machines and everything. So we ended up doing it for real. So when the actors are they're on the crane and they're swung out over the water, that's real. That's really, the boat is really kind of moored at sea, but that's connected to marina. All those scenes. So land is reasonably close. But then we spent 2 weeks actually out in the middle of the ocean at Jumping Pin on the Gold Coast, where the boat's kind of like held in place by pontoons, and we are actually out there just surrounded by ocean, and there's challenges with seasickness and loss of balance. And I mean, in a way, it was a bit of an insane undertaking because everyone knows horror stories of Jaws, but yeah, budget-wise, it wasn't sort of possible any other way. But it felt like a huge risk. We had an incredible stunt team, and the first AD was amazing, and the cinematographer. But all where the boat was in terms of longitude and latitude had to be worked out exactly. And if the tides kind of shifted, which they did at one point, the actual the marine life barrier that the actors would be in. It would crumple, not while they were in there, but at one point the strength of the currents actually crumpled the metal. So it was a real kind of high wire, but you feel the danger of it, like when it's real, you can feel it.
Oh yeah, I mean it looks great as well. This movie, I was watching it afterwards. I was thinking, I wonder how they did that, because it genuinely looks really real. And obviously that explains why. Sean, thank you so much, and all the best with the movie. I look forward to see what you do next.
Thanks so much. Yeah, hopefully the next one's a bit quicker coming along.
All right, man. Well, take care and all the best.
You too. Cheers. Thanks for your
Cheers,
time.
man. And I look forward to seeing what you both do next. But thank you so much, and all the best with the film.
Elliot, you're lovely. Thanks so much.
If you enjoyed this episode and want to support us, get early access and exclusive content and episodes, click to join our YouTube channel and become a member now. Thank you to our guests Sean, Hassie and Josh. Thank you to Chris at Alternate Current and the rest of the team. As always, thank you to our sponsors, movieposters.com and BetterHelp. Get 10% off with our discount codes now. Please don't forget to like and subscribe and ring the bell. Every little helps. Thank you.